Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough, and this is episode 851. And in today's episode, we're talking about the two types of imposter syndrome. So we're going to be covering it depending on where you are potentially. Now, as always, it's a good idea to think about what is imposter syndrome if you don't know already, which I'm sure many of you do if you've been listening. But if you're new here, it's something that I go and aim to solve, which is the fear of being found out. Like, you're in a position where you go, what if I get found out by my boss? Or what if I find out I'm not there, or my partner realizes I'm not a good partner? What if I fail? What if I get rejected? What if I look silly? What if fill in the blank? It's where we're doubting our own ability. And the interesting thing is, you may know on paper, like if you wrote down all your qualifications maybe, or all your experience, or all your qualities, logically you could probably go, yeah, I deserve to be here. I really do deserve, I know, or at least know I should be capable. But there's that other part of us, which I would call the unconscious mind, which starts to doubt, right? So we consciously want to be in that high profile position, or that career path, or in that relationship. We know all the good and great things which could come from that, whether it be wealth, whether it be achievement, whether it be purpose or passion. For example, a lot of people I've worked with who are wanting to be practitioners of hypnosis or NLP or other things, they're going to doubt their own ability. Like, what if I make a mistake? What if I do X, Y, Z? Or what if clients don't recognize me as a good hypnotist and so on? It's something that many people experience, the imposter syndrome. It's a term which has been more popular in the last 2 or so years. Like when I was growing up, I don't think it ever even existed. But if I were to say something now, the imposter syndrome is exactly what I was experiencing growing up. Always in a state of worry, self-doubt, the inner critic, the fear, the anxiety of all the things which could go wrong because I did not have the ability, or what I believed I did not have the ability to be in that situation or overcome that challenge. That's what imposter syndrome is to me. I'm sure there's lots of different definitions, but that's how I just think about it in my mind. The fear of being found out. So how does it operate in two forms? Well, the first form is for those who are going into a situation for the first time. So it's like you don't know what you don't know. You suddenly get yourself in a position which is familiar, but really not familiar. Like, you kind of know that you should be able to be okay with it, but you haven't had the experience, you haven't had the thoughts around doing what you're doing. So that's the first one. The second one is a real interesting one to me, because that is those who have been able to manage a large amount of success, and then they have this fear of losing it. And therefore they go, what if I'm not really good? So they've been in a position, or they've come from poverty, they've got all this, like, say, this business and career, and maybe they feel like an outsider. Maybe they feel like maybe they didn't have certain elements in the family unit growing up, which makes them kind of never feel like they fit in. But the fact that they got this success, it almost like exaggerates the imposter syndrome. So the first one is like, we haven't got anything from that situation yet. It's just new to us. Like I want to be a hypnotist. I want to be a practitioner of change, or I want to go into this new relationship, but I haven't got the necessary experience to be able to do it. And that's why I start to doubt. We may logically know that we're capable, but there's that part of us which doesn't feel that way. Now, that same person, and there's something for you if you are in that first stage of I don't know what I don't know, is to be very conscious of that second stage of the imposter syndrome. That is when you've risen to the top, or going up higher and higher. But because you're going higher and higher and higher in that success, where it be into real committed relationship and you start to have like cold feet about it, or wherever it be having your own business, having this success, wherever it be money, where it be reaching people, helping people, serving people. And because that is so enlarged compared to the first experience, it weighs a bigger burden on you. Like there's more chance of so-called failure, like, or there's more, we feel like we're gambling on it more, because we're like, oh my goodness, if this does fail even, everything's gonna go. So those are the two forms that you need to be consciously aware of, because otherwise you're going to, number one, in version 1 of the imposter syndrome, it's going to stop you go even into where you want to be going. And the second one, the imposter version 2, is if you've got to that place, you've got more of a risk to lose things. So those are the two types that I really see in my mind with the people that I work with. You see, I can work with people going into that profession or going into that relationship, but then I work with, and in the past I've worked with lots of like entrepreneurs who are making maybe $500,000 a month, or they're running wage bills, they're looking after salaries and their families, because obviously you want to make sure the business is successful, because you wouldn't want to let people go and ruin their families. So there's this added kind of pressure there. So be conscious of this, because the more you are aware of what could happen in this positive way, because you're preparing yourself, you won't find yourself there, and now you can start to anticipate ways of being different. So if we take the version 1, what do we do here? Well, number 1, be conscious and be more stoic of the reality of things. I always consider the worst case and list those things and look, the worst case is never really going to happen. I might as well empty my mind, like even write them down. If we think of anxieties, our mind's going 100 miles an hour. We can't catch up with, we're feeling this emotion. Well, before you get in that situation, stop for a moment. I know it can be hard, but just, even before it happens, stop and list out those consequences. List out what could go wrong. And then you have the ability to go, well, how likely is it? And what can I do about it to prepare for it? Or you could go and realize some of those are just complete distortions, complete generalizations that just don't really exist. So you can take these 100 things and realize, actually, the reality is there's like 5 or 6 things in this example. And in the reality of those 5 or 6 things, what can I do about it? And then what I can do is then have an opposite stack of my logic. Like, what is the logical side of me thinking? When I think about maybe what I've gone through and the resilient me have got me to this place. Like, you're here, you've adapted to so many different situations and survived. That's a great quality. Maybe it is the qualifications that you have or the experience you have. Maybe it's your intentions that you have for this situation. Like, if your intentions are pure, if you're like, because you really want to do something good, you really want to better yourself. Once you start to get the first one of the real logic, the stoic way of thinking, and then you couple it up with that conscious logic of your qualities, it's going to start to diminish the inner moment of the imposter syndrome. Because you can either refer back to it, or better still, and hopefully still, your unconscious mind is weighing up different evidence in that situation. It just never had the opportunity to do so because it was so automatic. It's almost like the unconscious mind jumps to the greatest conclusion in the quickest amount of time based on all the negative things. But if you can slow that process down, almost as if, and I like to always think about it, it's like making the unconscious conscious. Like, if you can develop and uncover what that unconscious process is, slow it down, figure it out consciously and logically, It will mean when you think about that or you go over it, whether it be for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whether you just check on it once a day, your unconscious mind is always being refreshed into the reality, not the distortion, not the generalization, not the deletions of the situations. All of those things, your unconscious mind is slowing down and going, okay, I remember when my conscious mind did X, Y, Z. It weighed it up. So you're going to almost interrupt the pattern. That's what we're after here. Interrupt the pattern of what's really happening. Now, when it comes to that second, and of course, by the way, always use the hypnosis. Always, if you can, seek out greater help to be able to let go of the conflict behind it. These are like helpful tips of really getting clarity. Like my first option is work with a professional. If I want to get to be somewhere, I want to work with the best person to get me there as an ideal. But in the meantime, you can make a huge shift. Like even what if 50% disappeared? Wouldn't that be better? Just by applying those two thoughts and processes of originally breaking it down, making it conscious, and then coming up with all the stoic way of thinking about emptying your mind, rather than just going 100 miles an hour, empty your mind, getting the logic of, is it really going to happen? To then weigh up all your qualities as to, look, how can I start to deal with that situation? So it's definitely going to help. So even if it removed like 10%, it's going to be better. So please go ahead and do that. Now, if you find yourself in the second version of the imposter syndrome, and to refresh your memory, it was maybe we came from nothing. We then achieved the success of an experience. And now because of that success, we have this big weight, this big burden, because what if I lose it all? What if I lose my business? What if I lose the situation or the contract? Or maybe if it isn't a relationship, you've gone so far into that relationship, you go, oh my goodness, I've got so much more to lose now. Because that's usually when self-sabotage kicks in, because you're going to stop yourself. You're going to try to change your state. A lot of people I've worked with, they can go to drugs or alcohol because they're in this high pressure situation in their business that they've just got to numb themselves, or they just self-sabotage their success. They just get to that place of lots of success and then they're just firefighting to stay in that place. So they're never really continuing to grow because there's big weight on their shoulders. That is a far more interesting, deeper aspect of the imposter syndrome, which I don't think many people talk about. For example, we've seen so many celebrities who achieve this great wealth of success, whether it be monetary or whether it be just through the things they've done, and then suddenly they get into depression. We know people who have committed suicide over things like that. Some great people, because they just have not been able to handle that pressure. And that's why I think it's really important, not just like the celebrities. I'm talking about anyone who is in a position where other people are relying on them to a greater degree. So how do we start to diminish that one? How can we start to do the work there? Well, number one, always try to get the best help you can, because in that situation, the chances are you do have more abundance. The chances are, if you've achieved a great level of success and you've had savings, or you've got the ability to, at least if you go back, to be able to earn more, because you're now continually to grow, knowing you're worthy, deserving, and good enough to be in that position, invest your way out of it. You really should be doing that. That should be your priority, so you don't self-sabotage. And I'm not saying like to work with me. You can work with literally anyone. I don't mind. You just got to be conscious that you can pay your way out of it or invest your way out of it for a quicker way of doing so. With that, you can still use the version 1 of the imposter syndrome, becoming more stoic. You may add to that and reflect upon that success. You can go, okay, I've had this 5 years of success in my position. What are my achievements there? The other thing you can do is you could look through the eyes of those who have been relying upon you. because you're looking through your own eyes thinking, oh my goodness, all these people rely on me. What if I lose this? What if I lose that? Or even if it's in a partner situation, when you get that kind of like you're so deep into it, look through the eyes of your partner and think about what they would be thinking of you. How do they see you? What are the qualities they see you? If it is in the business side, how do the customers see you? What are the colleagues, or if you're in a higher position, in a manager kind of director, CEO kind of thing, what are they thinking of you? If you're the people say lower down on the ladder of the company, so you're higher up a little bit, how do people see you? What qualities would they see in you? That gives you a greater range because you've had the greater experience. You've had the ability to move up that ladder. So therefore, we've got more data and evidence to bring into reality compared to the first one, because we don't know what we don't know. So that's the kind of route that I'll be going down. I'll be thinking about what successes have I had? How have I made an impact? Like maybe there's a deal that you got over the line, even if you don't believe in yourself, but just do it logically. Write it down on a piece of paper again and go, okay, what did I really do here? What can I learn from that? What qualities did I have to go through that situation? Even though I was really fearful, even though I was anxious and nervous the whole time, what qualities did I have to get it over the line? Whether it be a project, whether it be a certain situation, because that's the data and evidence that your unconscious mind is deleting. And once again, it's hard to be able to see that at times because we're looking through our own eyes. We're seeing that environment of that progression of, say, those 5 years through the thoughts of I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not deserving. So therefore, it's good to get outside of that subjective reality of your own, that deletion, that distortion, that generalization that I'm never going to do X, Y, Z, and look through the eyes of someone else. See what they see. Now, if there are things you need to correct in that, then that's good. It's good to be conscious of other people's perceptions. That's going to help. But the real reason behind that is just to be able to see those qualities. Because then when you go into a new situation, once again, it's going to be fresh in your mind. You can look over it here and there, but you're going to bring that into it. So rather getting lost on that spiral of the imposter syndrome, you're going to have more reasoning, you're going to have more logic, you're going to have a greater perception from not just your own eyes, but through other people's eyes. So that's what I like to do when I think of those two types of imposter syndrome. It doesn't take long, but it's almost like you're emptying yourself again, right? It is running at 100 miles an hour. You are feeling those feelings. We're having those identity beliefs of I'm not this, I'm not that. What if this happens, and so on. Let's slow it down. If you're going to learn anything, you need to empty out a little bit. That is why I really think everyone here listening to this should have some form of journal. I just ordered a couple the other day and they got here, so now I know I can empty out whenever I want. Whether it be before bed or whether I go out in the evening to make some notes, whatever it is, if you keep it in here, it's not going to work. Those internal conversations, the inner critics, just going to amplify it. So just get it outside of your mind and then go, what is the reality of this? Question yourself. Is this true? Or could this be a generalization that I've been carrying on with this story? Because we all have these stories. We all have been programmed from the past events or how we grew up in life, whether it be from a very young age or whether it be as a teenager or an adult. We've gone through so much, so many significant events, which has caused us to mold our perception of what we think is true. But that's not always the reality. In fact, it's not, because it is subjective. So the more you get those distortions out, those deletions out, just think there's I can't remember the exact kind of parable, but it kind of came to me just then, is like there's this mentor or this kind of spiritual kind of guide or Buddhist teacher, and they have like the student there. And the student just is not getting it, not understanding it. And let's just call them the mentor in this case, has a glass of water, and it has a jug of water. And the mentor pretty much says, you are like this glass. You're filled up with this water. And then the mentor pours in from the jug of the water into the full cup. And of course, what happens, it overflows. And ultimately, the mentor says, that's how you are right now. But what you've got to do is take this cup and empty it before you can fill it back up. We can get into this state of overwhelm, anxiety, fear. How many times have you had an argument 5 days later that the argument has passed? How many people are we living in our minds, those conversations which aren't paying rent? They're just staying there. They're echoing there. So sometimes we've got to just empty out. Just kind of go, I'm going to get it on a piece of paper. I'm going to get the reasoning here, the logic here. Once you do that, it will make a big difference to your unconscious mind. You are stopping it in its tracks to consider something else. More reasoning, more logic. Now, of course, always make sure you do the deeper work as well. In my opinion, my experience, a lot of the imposter syndrome is all about identity. Like the I am not fill in the blank usually creates the imposter syndrome. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy to be here. I'm not deserving to be here. And therefore we doubt why we're here. And that creates a lot of the anxiety and dread. So whatever happens, walking with me, walking with someone else, walking by yourself, really taking consideration that core identity, whatever it is for you, is going to be unconscious. It's going to be beneath the surface. It's hard to do just consciously and logically at times. Maybe those processes will help with that, uncover something. But whatever happens, work on that core limiting belief. That's going to be the creator of things. But in the meantime, you now have some tools to be able to implement, which could let go of 100% of it. I mean, why not? Let's just consider that. It could. I don't want to diminish that you can't do it by yourself or by just doing that, because it can happen. But even if it removed 10, 15, 20, 50%, I think that would be a good practice for you to apply into your life. It will make a difference in some way by making that unconscious conscious. Now, of course, if you did need my help, and this is not for everyone, you've got to be a professional. You've got to be invested and ready to go all in on your transformation. You can go to josephclough.info/talk, where you go ahead and fill out a questionnaire. It's like an application form, and then you book a call with us. And that just means we're prepared for the call. It is going to be a one-to-one call. And on that call, we'll get clear on what you're going through, what you want to let go of, exactly what you want to achieve, what's really getting in the way unconsciously, and then we'll come up with the best steps to make it reality. You might be a good fit for our program. Once again, there is an investment. It is fully customized to your needs, your desires, your unconscious mind. And that means we can just level up. That's what I want. But it's not for everyone. Like I said, you've got to be really committed to let this go and do whatever it takes, because life will never be the same again. So I hope you got value from this, even if it's just some small little tips here and there. Go ahead and apply them. You will see a difference once you do in letting go or dramatically decreasing those imposter thoughts. Remember what the two versions, one where you don't know what you don't know, and you're just entering it. And the second one is once you've gathered more success, that becomes a burden, and therefore it is heightened. That's why a lot of people in high profile positions have the imposter syndrome. They don't let it out. They don't let people know. So if you're in a position when you see this, your CEO or vice president, a lot of them do have that. After all, the imposter syndrome is like putting a mask on. We all can try to smile, but on the inside, we have a lot of self-doubt. So be gentle to all those that you work with, because you never know. They might be experiencing the imposter syndrome, whether you do or whether anyone else does, whether it be your child, whether it be your sibling, partner. Be conscious, and that means you can start to change and transform those in and around your life. Many thanks, and goodbye.